sees my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight.
Hey, Tristan. Oh, they don't have like.
Where's Tristan?
Hey, Tristan, this is Officer Nab, the Zombie King.
Hey Tristan, it's Renee Winterstatter.
Hello, Tristan. This is Bob Paul.
Hi, Tristan. My name's Agnes Garboska.
Hi, Tristan.
Hi, Tristan.
Hi, Tristan. Hey, Tristan. I hope you're doing really well. Hey, Tristan.
Hi Tristan, it's Gail.
Tristan, hi. I'm Donnie Cates.
Hey, Kristen. This is Tim Seeley.
Hi, Tristan. It's George Perez.
Hi, Tristan.
Hey, Tristan. Thanks so much for reading, and I hope you continue to enjoy the books.
Hey, Tristan, where the hell are you?
Tristan, where are you?
Tristan, where are you?
Tristan, where are you?
Hi, this is Rex Morales.
Hi, I'm Paul Story.
Hi, my name's Jamie Tittle.
Hey, guys, this is Joe Prado. I'm comic book artist Freddie Williams II.
Lee Palmiotti.
And I'm Amanda Connor.
I'm Ralph Tedesco from Zenescope, and you're watching Nerdette's Newsstand.
And you are watching Nerdette Newsstand.
Nerdette's Newsstand.
Welcome to Nerdette's Newsstand.
You're listening to Nerdette's Newsstand.
Nerdette's Newsstand.
And you are watching
Nerdette Newsstand.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to finally get Weird Science on the channel. Weird Science Comics, to be fair. I am excited to talk about different characters, things that are going on in comics. But the video that really got me interested was your character development video, which, to be fair, I watch a lot of your stuff anyways. But this one was kind of something that I had previously talked about on the channel. So we're going to dive into that. But how are you today, Jim?
Lovely. I'm a little tired. I know it's not early, but I feel bad saying it. But yeah, I'm tired right now, but I'm waking up. I'm getting ready to go. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's awesome.
Oh,
Thank
no
you very
problem.
much.
I've been familiar with your stuff for years. And honestly, it's kind of a little like I should have had you on a long time ago. I'm not gonna lie. But
okay.
even so. So
you keep
go
going.
ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I haven't really been doing a lot of YouTube stuff. So recently I kind of upped that. I finally got with the times and figured that maybe I should do some more YouTube videos. So I understand. Usually I was just putting up parody songs and doing stuff like
They're
that.
so good, though.
That was actually the reason why I started the YouTube channel. The problem is, as you'll know, that doesn't get you very far because they end up getting flagged all the time. So that is the big problem there.
Yeah, that's fair. But even when you were just doing the stuff on your website, like I've been familiar with you guys for a long time. Are you for a long time? So I wanted to make sure I had you on. In Fantasy I Die. Thank you so much. Don't miss my member chat. Don't worry, I won't. But I can't show it on screen because freaking StreamYards. It's almost as if characters make the story first instead of visuals or movie adaptations. Jim did well in that video. For sure.
Thank you.
I think sometimes, now, the whole concept behind the video, if you guys didn't, and I'll put it in the description after we're done streaming, so you can check it out. His channel is in the description. But the whole idea is our current comics developing characters like they should be, right? Like we've seen in years past. And I do think there's some examples you use that I would push back on. There are some that I'm like, I really wish we'd have gotten some great character development with Miracle Molly, but what happened? Where is she?
Yeah, she just disappeared. And I'll even go with you with that. There are some characters that I could push back at myself. And the thing is, though, is that where I would counter with that is some of the ones that I would push back on. Those are actually the good examples of when you actually do get good character work, and that makes the characters more viable, and they stick around then. A lot of things, like you said, Miracle Molly, a lot of them just end up being, a flash of, oh my God, that's an awesome character design.
Yes.
And then it disappears. And when I was thinking about it afterwards, and even before coming on here, it almost feels like it's like an advertiser. You want to get people in the store, so you have this great ad, but then they're getting into the store and there's nothing on the shelves because they don't do anything past that big character design. And it's frustrating because I'm with you. Like, just you brought up Miracle Molly. I'd love to see more Miracle Molly.
Her design was great.
Yeah.
The idea of her was great.
Yeah, I agree. And so when you end up where certain people, or even the idea, somebody will say Miracle Molly was a failure of a character, but how can you say that when you never really got a character? That's my biggest problem, is when people then pish-posh a character saying, oh, that character stunk, or that character you never know. You never gave the character a chance.
And the problem I have with stuff like that is they gave characters a chance that I didn't necessarily like. Naomi was in your thumbnail.
Yeah.
Naomi for like 2 years was put into the Justice League. She had 12 issues. She was put into Young Justice.
Yep.
Did she ever? Now, to be fair, I don't read everything from DC, but I read most things. There's very few that I skip out on, and I'm still avoiding reading the recent Harley Quinn because it's
not good.
Because she has a girlfriend and she's going to tell you 17 times.
Yeah. That book is even beyond that. It is a mess. It is. You can't even tell what's going on in that book. But yeah, keep going about the deal.
But like Naomi, okay, she had character development. The problem is, at least in my opinion, the Bendis of it all. Whereas her character development was more along the lines of I can and do and will be better. And it didn't ever feel like they tried to make her click with the Justice League. They tried to make her click with Constantine. They tried to put her in the Black Adam storyline where, and it just never worked for me. There was something about that character that it wasn't even that her origin was unknown or anything like this. It was the way she was written.
And that's part of the thing. When I was talking about development, some of the development I actually mean as well is not just origin, or it's the idea of letting the character kind of cook a little before elevating. And you're right. And a lot of people, because Naomi, again, we both can admit, hot ticket right off the bat. Like, people were like, oh my God, this is great. You have a TV show already announced before you even got anything. And then because of that, or with that, all of a sudden she's on the Justice League. Then she's in the Young Justice. And what I ended up having, what's kind of a joke when we would talk about it on the podcast, is Naomi would show up. Batman and Superman would claim that she's the greatest superhero ever. And then she, 2 panels later, would yell in a battle, I just got my powers yesterday. And she would, and so it was like, well, you got to let these characters, you got to let people fall in love with the character in a way that's natural, not forcing it. Forcing it doesn't work. The idea of just ramming it down your throat, it ended up, having people upset. And that's the thing now with Bendis gone. You don't have any Naomi because I don't think anybody wants to even kind of get involved with that. And I'd love to see Naomi come back. I like the character and I like the concept. It just never came out, on the thing, because it felt forced. It felt like you were told to, like your parents are telling you got to like something. You're not going to like it then. You're just going to, clap back at it because of that.
Yeah, and I think a kind of similar example would be if somebody could pick her up and write her in a good way. That would be awesome, because we saw that with Riri Williams. Her introduction was rather similar And then Eve Ewing took over and it was like, holy crap, there is kind of a character here.
Yeah.
Like, once somebody is able to get in there with the talent to write them, and I'm not saying Bendis is untalented, but I might be saying Bendis is past his prime.
He is past his prime.
Yeah.
We could say that. I like Bendis, and some of the old Bendis stuff is great, but not so recent, especially when he came to DC. It was a little off.
And I even tried to read his, I think it's Dark Horse. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh God, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
His best appearance recently was in Crossover, and it wasn't even him. It wasn't even him writing it.
I know. It is true. But yeah, he's lost it a bit. So, but it's a shame because he did come up with a decent enough character. I mean, the character ended up being a fan of super. Like, it had a lot of things that could have worked. And it just ended up where I think that things move way too quick for that character. And it happens a lot with these. And that's part of, like I said, the development of it, where people get so hyped up by just a character design, and then they think that they have to fast track that character to just get the, hey, let's get it while the iron's hot. And I think they miss out on some of the things that could make the character more of a long, running deal. I mean, one of the things that I'll say right off the bat here, you end up having the Titans taking over for the Justice League. And while some people may be like, oh, I like the Justice, but they've done their deal. So when that does happen, most people are like, well, okay, they paid their dues. Now in the back of my mind, I'm like, the Justice League will be back soon, but the Titans have paid their dues. So nobody's saying that's out of nowhere. That's ridiculous. Like you almost had in the Future State Justice League, where they were just kind of, hey, we're going to throw all these new characters at them. And that Future State was kind of a weird thing anyway, where, some people loved it, some people hated it, but the Titans right now getting into that, nobody's complaining because they have been around. We know these characters. We know they fit. We know that it works. And that's something that I guess I wonder if the writers nowadays in DC especially, but even Marvel, if they're just sitting around in a board meeting. I think I said it in the video, the idea that they're like, these kids nowadays, they can't pay attention to anything. So they think they have, like, they're almost doing it to try to help. But I don't know. It doesn't work as well.
I think they're trying to look at the new generation while also sometimes forgetting about the older readers, because there were characters that were very interesting, like Far Sector. I thought was very interesting. The art was gorgeous. And then I have a feeling it's gonna be a similar thing like with Miracle Molly, that's just Teen Lantern, Far Sector. I don't know if we'll see them again. Jeffrey Thorne, I would say, helped redeem Teen Lantern.
Yeah. And use Joe Mullen, too, from Far Sector.
Yes.
A crazy deal. And here's the thing. Now you're hurting me when you're talking, because I really wanted to see more of Teen Lantern. Again, I know there's going to be characters that we mention that either one of us may not love, the other one likes, and people might, grimace or, whatever. But Teen Lantern, I wanted to see more of. And I even like Ginny Hex a lot, wanting to see more of these characters. They were interesting, and yet they never went anywhere. And again, when people say, oh, Teen Lantern failure, but was it a failure because they just never did anything with them? And like you said, Jeffrey Thorne tried to do some stuff and redeemed her, but then even by the end of that, trying to take away the gauntlet, that was like the one thing that separated her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird play of then trying to fold them in, but I doubt we'll ever see Teen Lantern, for at least years, and the characters just disappeared.
I wonder, do you think that they are chasing the kind of Miles Morales theory?
Yeah.
They're all trying to get that lightning in a bottle.
Yep, that's what they're trying to do. That's exactly what they're trying to do. But yet they don't seem to understand what made that character lightning in the bottle. I mean, they're trying to force it, and I don't think that's the way to do it. But yeah, I do think that Miles is a huge thing, and especially with Bendis. I mean, they wanted Bendis to make the next Miles Morales, which should have been Naomi, I guess, or any of those other ones. And it just didn't work because, again, they forced it. And I don't know that was just him or editorial, but they really, really wanted to fast track Naomi, and it didn't work. It really didn't work by the end. Maybe let it simmer a little. and then she'll come back, and maybe if a big writer or somebody that has a really cool story might be able to, get something going again. I hope, but I don't know.
Like when it came to Miles, they did something completely unprecedented. Like 10 years and this character was a household name in video games, has his own movies, has a new movie coming out literally tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that was lightning in a bottle. You can't chase or expect that. You have to put in the work. And another character that I thought was going to do really, really well. And I'm so like, I am still protesting, guys. I am still protesting. Yara Flor.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I was doing it and I was making the thumbnail and things like that, Yara Flor, and me and you, obviously now, we both love Yara Flor, right?
Love her.
The thing is, I wouldn't call her a failure yet.
No.
But as a fan, and I guess only like really people who really like her would say this, we want so much more from her. Like there's so much untapped possibilities with that character. There's so much that character could have been besides just being in the background and then stepping up and yelling a line and then disappearing again. She's still in some books, but it's just not what I thought the character could have been. And now really the reason why I ended up doing the video was the announcement of Wonder Woman's daughter coming up, and then I'm like, you just put Yara, that is just a replacement for Yara. It seems in my mind.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, oh my god, and Yara had again a character that had the design. People went nuts for it, and then we got some stories, but it never felt like they were getting to the opportunity or the possibilities, and then the book was delayed. Then it was it's
canceled. I was so mad.
Yeah, it was a shame because I was really enjoying, and I really wanted to see again with development. You had a girl who you had a different pantheon you could have used. You could have done so much more. An actual Amazon, but they seemed to pull back to try to make her more like everybody else than to use her uniqueness to actually expand the character, because that character could have been so big. It could have been really big, and it's a shame. And still could be, but that Wonder Woman's daughter, I'm telling you, I'm like, you just destroyed, Yara. But hopefully that's not the case.
I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. As a comic book reader, when and I love Wonder Woman, don't get me wrong, but she was always this ideal of perfection. Mm-hmm. She always made the right decision. And that's what's great about her, too. But Yara wasn't.
Yeah.
Yara was cocky.
It was good. I know.
Yes!
I'm telling you, the first time that they showed her get really pissed, like, this is character work. This is the development and then it kind of, like, stopped. At one point, she was pissed, like you said, cocky, and you're like, boy, this is different. And even then, I'm thinking, all right, what's going to happen when she meets Diana? This is going to kind of go against her if they're going to like.
Yes.
And it never really played out well. It never, because here's the other thing about when I talked about development, I think that happens a lot of times in comics nowadays. There isn't any friction. There isn't anything. When you have a new character, the minute they show up, the way that a lot of writers want to tell you, well, that's the thing. They want to tell you they're good without showing. So what they do is have another character, one of the main ones, say, man, like I said about Naomi, she's great. I don't need Batman to tell me she's great. I want to see her being great, and I want to see her doing things. And Yara, I'm telling you, I really expected so much more from her that it was kind of upsetting. I mean, it was upsetting when the book got canceled, and it's a shame because that book could have been something really big. The delays killed it, though. It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get this super chat real quick.
All
Robert,
right.
Thank you so much. Marvel also got lucky with Kamala Khan, but that was because they created her and expected her to fail. So the writers went all out and it succeeded. Also, sadly, I think Jewel Mullion will forever be the queer Lantern, like Tim has been reduced to the queer Robin.
It might be. I'm telling you, Joe Mullen is almost like, again, I'm not the biggest Green Lantern fan. I don't know everything about the Green Lanterns, but what I said the one day is like, Joe Mullen's going to end up being like the Broccoli Green Lantern, where you're just going to see her in the background occasionally, and there she is. But she deserves more. Again, She had something very unique in her character. The Ring was different. You had a detective, a police officer that ended up in this far sector of the book, and really was tough and more, gritty. And then, I don't know, they end up where you said Jeffrey Thorne did try with her.
He for sure tried.
Yeah, and it just, that book didn't really go well with a lot of people. But again, it wasn't because of the characters. It was, and I'll tell you, Jeffrey Thorne, I think, he was trying to do something that, I don't know, admirable, but he was trying to do something different, and it just didn't click with people because it was a bit of an obscure thing. He went back to trying to make Mosaic and the stuff back in the past make sense.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what people wanted. It ended up being, and again, I hate any sort of deal where you have a book with the Green Lanterns and it's, lights out, the rings don't work. That is, handicapping things and whatnot. But unfortunately, I think, and when we go through this, the idea where, like a Yara Flor or a Naomi or a Tim Drake right now, I worry all the time that the companies think that it's the characters failing, not the writers or not the story or not the ideas. And that's what scares me about something like, a Naomi or a Yara Flor. Eventually they're going to blame the character, but it's not. The characters are pretty good. It's just that the writers don't dive deep in, but I don't know. I hear a lot of things that editorial has a lot to do with that, though.
And I'm a big fan of, there's no bad characters. There's only bad writers.
Exactly.
And any character can be made interesting or evil or optimistic or aspirational with the right care.
Yep.
And honestly, I do applaud what Jeffrey Thorne was trying to do. It was on a big scale. There were a lot of deep cuts. I was like, I'm looking this stuff up, just trying to understand. Jeffrey Thorne, great man, great writer. I like him a lot. I've had him on the channel before, but holy crap, you're making me do my homework.
I know. I'm on a podcast and we go through it and we try to sound like we know things, right? So I'm reading the issue, and at one point I'd have to put it down, then go back, and it was homework. I had to look, and you saw, though, that, okay, you really are connecting these dots that I didn't even know needed connecting, but here you go. So I did give him a lot of credit for that. But unfortunately, a lot of people who are reading aren't going to do the homework like me and you are doing, and that's the problem. But yeah, it's funny you say about the no bad character deal. When I first started, I started reading comics, and I started reading in the New 52. I'm kind of new to reading comics. So I start reading comics. And then I said to my one buddy I work with, Eric, that I do all this stuff with, I said, we should just, start a site and review some things. And one of the first things he said is, and it was just weird because he just, remember, though, there's no bad characters, there's only bad writers. I'm like, oh, my God, and I've thought that constantly while you're doing, because you tend to kind of veer towards that, oh, this character's not going to work, but you realize then, no, it could. There are things here, they're just not using that, and it's a shame.
It is, and I also think that some of the writers tend to forget what a vast array of characters are already available to them, and kind of, I know you get more royalties. I know you get more, you know what I mean? If these characters take off, but Michael just mentioned Firestorm, Captain Atom.
Yeah.
These characters are worthy of attention and are worthy of furthering their storylines, but they also kind of get pushed to the back.
Yeah.
So you have this endless cycle.
Yeah, it's bad. And I guess we could say that a lot of it, like you said, the royalties and things like that, everybody wants a Netflix show. Everybody wants a movie. Everybody wants to get those royalties as it goes on. And again, that might be, we talk about the idea of Miles Morales being that big deal. Obviously, that's part of it. Oh, my God, if I can get the next Miles Morales, I'm in the money. They sit there, look at Brian Michael Bendis is just counting the money. And you had one of the funniest things where I saw this transition was where James Tynion, he's on Batman, and he announced right away, listen, I'm going to have new tech every issue. It's going to be great. I'm going to have a new Batmobile.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember, and I think then somebody said to him, and he realized, wait a second, you don't really make money on new tech. All of a sudden, characters out the wazoo, and a lot of them pretty good. I mean, he came up with some Miracle Molly, all this stuff where he came. But boy, it looked like at one point he realized that Substack was coming. He's like, okay, I'm going to do this real quick. And there was character after character. Like, here's punchline, here's this. And again, these are sticking, punchlines sticking. And, developing and going. And even that, again, almost like you said about the Aura Flora, I think that punchline, they've developed the cat, but it should be more. It seems like that character could be more as we go forward. And I don't know. Some people love the character. Some people hate her. I'm kind of in the middle. I don't love or hate her. I just want more from her and see more than just another Joker's girlfriend, somebody obsessed with the Joker. I'd love to have that develop past that, but that might take some time.
It seemed like they were going in that direction, and then all of a sudden they were like, well, maybe she's not a punching bag. Let's take her away.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Weird. Yeah, it was weird. It did feel weird. And even when we're talking about this, you brought up Harley. And I think that one of the problems with Harley, with a lot of times, a lot of creative team changes and things like that, that's another character that's just been stagnant. Nobody seems to want to like, especially this Teenie Howard.
Oh, God.
It's just, I mean, it's weird. I said on the podcast at one point, it's hard to write Harley sometimes because you want to keep writing Harley. You can't just Harley it up constantly. There has to be some substance to it. But now it just seems like okay, here's Harley. She has to be goofy. She's going to break this. But there's nothing, there's no substance to it. So the character isn't being evolved. Then when they just said, well, she's a hero, I didn't mind that. I mean, a lot of people get mad or whatnot. But I don't mind a Harley who wants to do better but just can't help herself she keeps doing stuff wrong. But they kind of go back and forth. It never sticks. Everything's always, back to square one, and that's a shame too.
And I think see, here's the thing with the Teenie Howard starting, because I didn't mind Stephanie Phillips. I thought Kevin was a good character. I
love Kevin. I thought Kevin was great. And people might laugh. Kevin grounded Harley, and that's what she needs. You can have Harley be Harley, but you need something to ground her overall, and that was Kevin. And that character I hated when he first showed up. That Riley Rossimo neck goiter tattoo drove me nuts. I didn't even understand it. But then the character started having a lot of heart. And ended up, you saw, oh my God, this actually is a good developed character. And Teenie Howard seems to have just shoved him aside. So I worry. But go on.
She had to turn him in.
Yeah.
The first issue, he called the cops on her. Like, what?
And didn't even seem like the idea of like, I'm doing this for your own good. He just like, I'm done with you. It was so bad. It was so bad. I mean, this is a guy who actually went through hell and high water to bring Harley back from the dead. Ended up, doing all that. And now all of a sudden he's calling the cops on her. It was so infuriating. Oh my goodness. Now we're just going to, we could rant for 3 hours about Teenie Howard and this nonsense Harley. It's so bad. But go on again. When Teenie Howard came on the book, it just kind of, it took all the wind out of the sails of anything. And
the idea of her being like a teacher, a mentor, I think could be really good, because she's got to battle with herself on how to teach these kids, but then it's instantly sidelined by her hating the kids.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. I mean, right away, I'm like, all I think of is that she's going to go in, she's going to teach them, and they're going to teach her how to break dance or something. I was so excited. I'm like, this will be great. This is like every movie. And play that. Now, here's the thing. Wouldn't it have made more sense, Kevin, instead of calling the police, just convinces Harley that she needs to settle down a little and get back to her roots, and then she goes and gets a job at a college. The idea she gets arrested for doing just nonsense, and her parole is to go teach kids it doesn't make any sense. And then it's just wacky, hey, look at me, I'm gonna tell jokes and stuff. And that, like you said, then she hates the kids. She doesn't even want to be involved with it. It's so bad.
It is. And I'm like, I have a 3-issue rule, and I'm keeping that 3rd issue on the. I don't want to drop Harley. It's one of my favorite characters, but oh my God, it's hard. And it's so night and day for me, because I have been praising her Catwoman run.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've loved it. I know people didn't. 50 made me a little mad when she killed Mom, but like other than that, I've been saying, look, she's trying to develop this character. She's trying to develop Tomcat, and and Eco, however you say it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, look, this is good. So her Harley got announced, and I'm like, yes, cool, awesome. No.
You know, it's funny. I'm not as big a fan as you, but I love Tomcat. And Tomcat, when he showed up, me and Eric on the podcast said, oh my God, this could be the next Kevin. We were so excited.
Yes.
It seemed like that. And I thought, this is really cool. And it does feel like, to me at least, that she really wants to develop Tomcat a little more. Dario. So I really did like that part. And I like Aiko, and she had been Catwoman before. And at the beginning of Teenie Howard doing Catwoman, it was that, crime bust. It kind of got a little off when she went into jail and you had her cat delivering street-flavored ramen through the vents. But that made me giggle. But now it's done something, because now we're going to have that big crossover coming up. So, I'm looking forward to that and hoping that elevates it. But again, I don't know what she's doing with Harley. I just think she doesn't really get the character. It's weird, though, to say somebody gets, Harley. It's kind of a goofy character anyway, but you have to do something more than just, hey, I'm going to break the fourth wall. I'm going to tell jokes.
Yes.
And that gets really old really, really quick. And then again, there are people out there, as well as I do, that think that Harley's a horrible character, shouldn't have a book. And then you end up having something like what's going on now that pretty much justifies their opinion. And I hate when that happens. I hate when people, because I'm like, no, I'm trying to convince them. No, it's not true. And then they have that example to say, well, what about this? And again, though, bad character or bad writer, it's more the writing that's doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Harley has some great books. Like, go read Harleen if you're telling me Harley doesn't deserve her own book. That work was gorgeous.
Yep.
And amazing. Like, I always have a hard time saying that or Mad Love, but I think Harleen is like my favorite Harley book ever. It's so good. Or Cami Garcia's Criminal Sanity. A very different take.
That's
cool.
That's really good too. There's a lot of ways, and that shows you. And it's weird too, because a lot of times with a character like a Harley, but it would go for other characters as well. You realize that the character does have opportunities, and they sometimes are in these elseworlds off a cut, because then people can actually tell a story. They don't end up having maybe editorial say, "Oh my God, this doesn't feel like Harley." But why does it have to be the jokey, crazy Harley? It doesn't have to be that.
Yes.
And it shows sometimes when you can take off those limits of a continuity or the deal, that it really does shine.
Absolutely. Raymond, thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, everyone, did you know Harley has a girlfriend? Because Cena is going to beat that trope to death, whether you like it or not. Yeah, we did a girlfriend counter, and it was really, really sad, because it was like 7 times in the first issue and something like 5 times in the like it's not normal speaking. They're one of my favorite couples ever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Scott-free, Barda, and then them. Mm-hmm. And so I have no issue. Like, I know some people still don't like them together. That's not it. That's not the way normal people talk.
I know.
Like, it just, you got to learn to write queer characters like they're just a couple.
They're just people. They're just a couple. Like you said, they don't, couples talk the way couples talk. You don't have to push it. We see that most people, like you said, there are people who will be against it, but most people like that couple. And yet it always feels, and this is something that, again, happens a lot in comics nowadays. People really like the Nightwing book by Tom Taylor.
Yeah.
I'm not as big a fan, but Nightwing's my favorite character, and why I end up not loving it as much is because I feel like every issue, and just like you're saying with Harley and Ivy, you don't need to have every issue and every conversation convincing us that that's the thing that should be going on. Like the idea that I think Tom Taylor writes Nightwing more as a PR agent of, look at this, this guy's the greatest. I get it. And it's fun to have at least one comic where the hero ends up winning the day all the time, and he's a great guy. Dick Grayson himself is my favorite character because he's a great guy. I understand that, so for me, I need a little more, but when they write Harley and Ivy, it's almost like they're trying to convince us that they should be together. They have to convince us that, oh my God, this is the love affair. We know this. So make it, and what you're never going to get then is any substance from it. And I did see somebody asking the question about changing races and sexualities and things
Yes.
like that. And again, I always am up for any sort of thing that could lead to more stories and different stories. So I'm not one who's going to get upset ever about the idea. You know, maybe then I even had I saw you comment on things, people with John Kent being, you know, aged up or DH or what. Like, I just want good stories and we get it out of that. But what I think that happens is, like I said about characters where Superman says they're the greatest ever, when you end up having a sexuality change, a race change, they never show any sort of struggle. They never show any sort of substance with it. Tim Drake being bisexual, there's nothing different about somebody who's his age deciding, oh my God, you know what? I always felt this way. I'm going to do this or whatnot.
Yes.
But you have to, you can't, like Naomi, you said, you can't force it. When they just announce this is what he is without ever showing any sort of progression or show maybe a struggle to come to grips with it or whatnot, then it feels forced. And that's where I think people, and there's going to be people who are going to be upset about that no matter what. That's fine. And everybody has their own opinion. But I'd rather see, you know, if you're going to change something up, there has to be a reason for it. And one of the reasons could be to show the struggle with it or show how the development goes. And I really would have wanted to see that. And you didn't really get that. I mean, there are some things that are mentioned in the Pride issue this past week with Tim that I'm like, you're saying that he had a hard time, but I never saw
We
the
never
hard
saw
time.
that.
I mean, he says in that Pride issue, he says, yeah, it was weird to be around Stephanie.
I know.
And
I'm like, when?
What? Yeah, when? Because the thing that I saw, Stephanie showed up a day later, said to Bernard, this is the greatest day of my life. And I'm like, no, like you can't. And that's the funny play is, I'm asking you right now, would you have thought that Stephanie being upset about Tim, it would have just been somebody upset because the person that they love decided to love somebody else? It wouldn't have been homophobic or anything.
Yes.
I think they're afraid of that. They can't have, because if Steph's like, this doesn't make sense. Oh my God, that ruins, it doesn't ruin Steph. That actually makes her a fuller character, because some people would be like, what happened? It wasn't me. Did I do? Like, there's a lot of things that could have been developed there and never were. And then after the fact, oh yeah, that struggle you had, where was that? I'm looking for that.
I thought the exact same. Like, I thought that interaction with them was good. Like, where were you?
Yeah.
But like, when he said that, I legitimately giggled, because I'm like, okay, well, Megan Fitzmartin didn't show us any of that.
Yeah, I'm like, would somebody get that memo to her? Because that could have been a good deal. That could have been something that was developed, and it's a shame that now you have to like retroactively say that. And that story I really liked in the Pride issue. I like the Grant Morrison story just because Grant Morrison is wacko, and I always enjoy stuff like that. But a lot of times the Pride issues are stuff like that, where they're just standing around talking, like you said, not really natural conversation. And that's they have to get past that, you know, or people aren't going to accept it, because it ends up feeling weird. It ends up not even weird. It just doesn't feel natural, and it feels like it's being forced. But you're right about Harley and Ivy, though. They're a couple, and they've been a couple. There shouldn't be
for a long time.
There shouldn't be these weird conversations with it. And I don't know. A lot of times I guess there is some fighting and stuff like that, but they always just want to show, the good times, and it's the greatest. And you need to do more than that. You need to get it more like a couple. I mean, I'm married. I have 5 kids. It's a war zone half the time, and that's what they need to show. They need to show the battles that go on in a relationship to make it work, and hopefully they'll get more into that.
Tevia, I don't know what was going on. I seen that this popped up. So I went and I added you to always approved and mod, and then you were able to type. Yeah. So I don't know what happened. You weren't on my block list. I would never block you. That would be silly. But now I got it taken care of. I'm so sorry, but we should be good. Thank you so much, Tavia, by the way. I don't know. Why would Tavia ever be timed out or anything? That's so weird, but we got it. We got it. I will say, in that Pride issue, the Midnighter story, It was so good. Like the fact that that dude spit on him and he's like, kinky, but you're not my type.
Yeah, Midnight. I actually, the thing is, I'm reading it and there's a Brainiac 69. And when they said that, I'm like, oh man, somebody should have yelled dude after that. I thought it was funny. And just to go, Robert Weiling said in the chat that he wasn't just talking about, he wanted to correct the question, the idea. And I'm with him and this is something that, we could talk about. The idea when they do change race or sexuality, that becomes the one trait for the character. It's like such a one-dimensional thing of the character then. And it is true. It's kind of like a lazy deal where they don't want to develop more than that or make the character something more. It does end up becoming that character is just that. And it is. Tim Drake kind of got to that point a bit in that Megan Fitzmartin deal. Which again, people will look at that as it failed, and it failed. I think maybe you'd agree, but it failed because the writing sucked. That was an awfully written book. Nothing set up. The stories itself were just ridiculous. You had Tim Drake win out of battle by throwing up on a guy.
That was so bad.
And I get what she was doing. Like, she wanted to show Tim was smart, so it's like, okay, acid, and then he just throws up. I'm like, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it.
There are so many ways to show his intelligent. Vomiting, I would say, is probably pretty low on the list.
Yeah, I give her credit. I never would have come up with that. I'll tell you that. But yeah, that didn't really show, what makes that character great by him throwing up on people. But that book, it's just been a wreck. And it's a shame because I did have, kind of arguments with people about when it was canceled and why it was canceled. And people want to go with just that one thing, the surface level thing.
For sure.
It got canceled because he was buying. Now, I will tell you that I think that some people didn't buy it originally because of that, because, whatever their opinion was of it. But once the book started, there were people buying it, but they stopped buying it. And they stopped buying it because it was awful. That book would be awful if Tim was gay, bi, straight, whatever. Yes. It was bad. The sexuality didn't ruin the book. It was the bad writing. And Megan Fitzmartin just did not get the character or how to write that comic book. So, there's always a chance for any character. Again, that's why I ended up doing that video, because it's something I've been yelling about on our podcast and other videos as well for so long, of these characters end up failing, but it's not necessarily the reasons why people think I believe, because they're not developed.
And a lot of people, when it comes to that, it's something easy to blame, but if a crafted writer had been able to write, a lot of people wanted a Tim Drake Robin story, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people wanted that character back in that seat and then be able to have his own story. Had a good writer crafted something and Riley did not belong on that book.
It's that you're already handicapping him, but
yes.
Riley Rossmo, people do like him, people hate him, whatever. I'm not a big fan, but I will admit that his art works in certain books. You have to, you have to be careful what books he's on. He works better with like a Swamp Thing, or he'd work better with, a dark character, a magical thing, but he doesn't work well with just a run-of-the-mill, I'm in a marina doing you couldn't even tell what was going on half the time in that book, right? And especially I love the idea in that book where it was a detective case, and it's like, here's the clue. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. It's like a blob of something, and it just didn't work very well.
His Robin King, that's one I always point to, because it made sense. It was such a good bad story. Like, it was a great story, but I mean, it was And it made sense for Riley to be even on Martian Manhunter, right? He's an alien.
Yep.
Yeah.
It worked.
But like Riley on Sexy Harley, that's no. I'm just saying. Probably had a better option for that one.
He's better with horror. I'll go like straight up with that. He even had a Constantine run, a while back. Really good. It looked good. It actually fit the character. But you can't. When the first time I really was like, oh my God, what's that? And it is a horror kind of, but that Monster Men story in Batman, I'm like, oh my God. When he draws Amanda Waller, she has like a giraffe neck all the time. Everybody with these necks with his. It's so crazy. But yeah, it works in some things. It did not work in the Tim. It did not work with Harley. It's funny too because I got worn down, and by the time that he ended up kind of going off the Harley, I'd been so used to the nonsense that then I'm like, oh man, I kind of miss him, and then I realized, no, I really don't. I was just getting used to it.
I think another one that I seen, Tevya, we're gonna disagree. That's
yeah.
okay. That people also use an example as compared to Tim is John. But I would say, in my opinion, that's a little opposite of what we saw with Tim. Like, there was character development, there was triumph, there was failures, there was camaraderie, some really great stuff with Nightwing. Those were some of my favorite issues.
Yeah.
Really great. How did you think they did with character development with John after he was aged? Okay, after Bendis. Let's say after Bendis.
Well, after the age up and after Bendis, the only thing that I really, again, almost saying about what we said with Tim Drake, the idea I wanted to see more of that struggle that he had because he was in that volcano being aged up for a while.
Yes.
And it was a doppelganger, evil, Ultraman, doppelganger of his dad being mean to him and keeping him there. And I did want to see some of that trauma when he came back. And I thought we were going to get it in this newer book when he was going to go confront Ultraman. But then Ultraman.
We got one page.
Yes, and that got snapped. I'm like, what the hell? And then I'm like, oh, you tricked us. You just wanted to get to the Injustice universe, you jerk. Yeah. I wanted to see more of that. I really wanted to see. And I thought that maybe you could do that with a Nightwing. Now, when he says, Nightwing, I thought you were always going to come back and get me. They should have developed that more. Like Nightwing should have explained, well, first, kid, I'm not the type of character that's jumping through multiverses all the time, but I understand what you're saying, and are you okay? I know that they've asked him, but I think that the problem is, I don't know if you'd agree, but the problem is when they decided to make him bisexual as well, I think they had this weird deal of saying, okay, now if we showed that he had some sort of mental problem, just the idea of being, they're going to say that that's why he became like it wouldn't work.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that would put a bad light that some people would say, oh, he did this because he's now mentally ill. I think that it would have been a bad look. So I think that they had to push it a little aside. But I really wanted more of that. And I'd love, like, the idea that he comes back and you don't think anything's wrong because he doesn't want... In my mind, if that was me, I wouldn't want to upset my mom and dad because they're going to... Yeah. Superman especially is going to blame himself. If John comes back and he's like, I'll never get over this.
Absolutely.
Cal's never going to forgive himself, and he still may not. I mean, they let him go off with crazy grandpa to nonsense. But in that, I would have liked to have seen, and that's why I thought Nightwing is a really good way to do this because now he can open up to Nightwing and say, listen, I'm not okay. And you could get something like Tom King wanted to do. Thank God they didn't send John to the sanctuary. He'd be dead by now, or at least a murderer. But the thing with this, I would have liked to have seen that develop more of that idea that he isn't quite, not right. I mean, there's nothing about what happened would make him wrong, right, or bad, or whatnot, but that there's problems he's trying to work through and needs somebody. And the idea being Superman, John could think as a kid, I can't show anything like that I'm Superman now. I can't be somebody that shows that and then really have some good play of, no, that's why you're a hero. Because you do have problems and you work through them and things like that. It could have been tell you, that's one of the things that really I wish we got more of. Because I know Tevya, God bless him, he is never going to say, and it's funny because I did have that kind of, it wasn't even me saying that they were going to age or de-age John. I had a video of just, this could be, like, this seems like something could work that way. And Tevya right away, he said, and then I saw, Nerdette. You're like, no, I think you just put boo. And I was like, oh my goodness. But again, that's the fun of it. The fun of it is to, have little arguments and things like that. It doesn't mean that you have to, slice somebody's throat because of it. But yeah, I really wish that they could have delved more into John's, suffering and the pain that he would have went through in 7 years in a volcano with an evil version of his dad screaming and yelling at him. And even then, remember Ultraman was like a roller coaster ride of emotions. He'd come there and he'd talk to John and start crying that nobody liked. It was so crazy, but... yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Now it's the Injustice stuff, though, where we could have dealt with that. And I really hope that it isn't John, the savior of the Injustice world, because he's so good. It just that starts pushing things a little too much. It would be cool to have John, like, he thinks he can solve this injustice stuff, and you realize, oh, well, like Cal told him earlier, you can't really change everything. Some things are set up, but I worry.
To have
I worry
him
how
lose,
that,
in a sense.
yeah, and that's, again, like I said with Nightwing and Tom Taylor about that whole deal, like, you need to have the character struggle a little because then we can get behind him and then there's tension to it. And a lot of times now people are afraid because of all these fights that go on Twitter and, you know, you have all that going on. And I do think that it's affected some of the writers. It'd be awesome if you just had like DC and Marvel. They say, okay, you're hired by us. Now you lose your social media account. You're never allowed to look at any of that. And now write your stories because I don't mind when, you know, they react and try to make things right or, you know, but there's so many different things going on with people hating or liking stuff that you're never going to win anyway. And so you get like, and that's what I think Tom Taylor is trying to, I don't know. I don't get it a lot of times. He wants to make people happy, but I'd rather him write a story.
No, I totally get it. And the thing is Superman, John getting, I love Super Sons. First off.
Yeah, I do too.
That's what made me like Damian. If it wasn't for the Super Sons, I would probably still be saying, you know, he's a little shit. I hate when he shows up in books. But me and Tevi are on opposite sides of that because I get very bored very easily with Superman. Like, I have my favorite stories. There are some great, iconic stories. But having John reinvented in that way made things a little different. Different enough that I could look at this character in a new light and go, okay, well, this is a different Superman. Let's give him a chance. And unfortunately for some, they're not, that's not for them, and that's fine. But I don't think me and Tavia will ever agree.
No.
Nah. But that's okay. That's okay. I really enjoy the character. I think I love the injustice, so I was really excited. But one thing I've noticed about Tom Taylor is I gravitate towards reading his books first because they're so quick.
They're so quick. I've said, tell me if you, when I read it, and I've said it in reviews a lot, that it's like drinking soda. It's empty calories. You get, but yet you enjoy it while you're doing it. But when you're done, you're like,
that's a good way to say it.
There's been a lot of times where when I'm reading it, I get done, and legitimately, I think that this can only be 16 pages. I go and count. Yeah. I'm like, nope, it's regular page count, and it just. But yeah, I've been using that empty calories deal because that's what it feels like. It's like, oh my god, this is super sweet and great, and then afterwards, it doesn't do much for you. There's no substance. There is, but there isn't. It feels like it goes by too quick. It's funny when we talk about we talk about most of the books on the podcast. So when we're going through it, I talk to my buddy and we say, okay, do we have to do things early? Like sometimes we'll have to do a Friday and Saturday to record everything. But when it's every time he goes, oh no, we don't have to do that because we have a Tom Taylor book and that's going to be quick because it's true. I mean, you just get through it so quick that it's not like, reading a lot of the others. You're boom, 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 and you're done. And it feels like it just goes by too quick. But maybe that's part of the thing that people like. Like they end up thinking that is, oh my God, it's because it's so good. And I want to get the next one. So it does make you want to get the next issue. But by the end, it just goes by too quick, like you said.
It does. And it's so weird because I've really been like Nightwing for me has been one that's been consistently good, but also not very, like, it feels like it moves in baby steps.
Yeah, the progression is pretty
like
awful.
What happened to Heartless?
He's just hanging around. And this is the thing. This is where I now you brought up the things here. The idea that everybody keeps, and again, like that idea, oh my God, Nightwing, how many people have told Nightwing now that he's done a great job in Bloodhaven? I mean, you had Superman tell him that, Wonder Woman. You also had just recently Garth Tempest say, oh, you've been doing great things in Bloodhaven, which is fine. There's still a serial killer walking around that is ripping hearts out. And the idea that he solved, or quote unquote solved, this child homeless problem in Bloodhaven, the source has been Heartless is killing parents that are leaving these kids. But instead of doing that, he's made a park where they can skateboard and get cheap pizza from George Perez. That's it. Like, come on. And when he ended up, have you read the recent issue of Nightwing?
Where Olivia gets her name?
Yeah. And Nightwing gets powers, right? Right away, I'm like, you better go right to Bloodhaven and get that. And just, you have Superman powers, be Superman. Throw that Heartless right into the sun. Just take, now, again, it's so funny because in that, one of the biggest things that happened for a Nightwing and people who really love Blockbuster ends up dead, right? He's taken care of by Heartless. Like, Heartless actually did the thing that Nightwing would have wanted to do all this time, but he couldn't. So I think that that's a weird play, that because Nightwing can't kill anybody, you have Heartless where Tom Taylor's just going to have him. He's almost like on retainer. He's sitting there in the room. Oh my God, we need this person dead, go. And I think that I hope this doesn't happen, because another character I want developed is Melinda, the sister. Yep. I think Heartless is going to kill her. I think that she's going to be gone, and I think that's going to be. I think that's going to be the thing that really makes Nightwing say, "I need," and probably almost would get to killing because of that. But I have a bad feeling about it. But there's Heartless that's saying, "What about that box?" That safety deposit box that the Hold had for Dick Grayson in that weird bank thing.
Yes, wasn't that in the annual?
Yeah, it was right before. I mean, I think it was issue 99, and Tony Zuko showed up, and I'm like, oh God, like what is going on with that? Like, what are we going to get from that? And that might sit for a while too. He lets things sit a little. A serial killer can't sit for that long, right? Yeah, and you know what the funny thing of Tom Taylor is, when he realizes, and the editorial realizes, he takes so long to get back to something that every time something comes back, he's got to reintroduce the character because nobody remembers it. You'll get background of a character that should be, the big thing going on, but pushed aside. It's weird. And again, that book, the pacing, like you said, is off, and the power level, I think, is off too, because everybody's going to want to help Nightwing. We know this. He's a great guy, but
he's the heart of DC.
He is. He really is. And that's why I love him. But you have the Titans swoop in and they could take care of every problem he has, and they have. And that's where I wish that, and it doesn't have to be a mean thing. I hope that he just says, listen, we're the Titans now. We are taking over the Justice League. You guys stay there. I have to do my own thing. But Titans Tower's in Bloodhaven now, so they're always going to be around, and it throws it off. I really do think it throws it off a bit.
And the thing is it was the annual that we got the Heartless origin.
Yeah, that was the Heartless origin.
And that was cool to me. Really I thought that was so evil and vindictive and terrifying all at the same time. I'm like, cool, Heartless is going to come back. Oh, no. No, he's not. Absolutely, he's not.
Yeah, you had that big reveal, and oh my God, it goes personal from the first couple issues, and it's that whole play that it's the evil Dark Knight. Like, he just wants Nightwing to suffer all, and you're like, all right, here we go. And then nothing. Then, kill Blockbuster at a point, disappear again. It just keeps disappearing in a way that never is talked about. Like the idea that Nightwing, and this is me when I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh, look, I love seeing, Haley and Barbara and Dick, they're walking around, they're eating ice cream. I'm like, Heartless is out there killing people right now. Get that taken care of. I know you have to have your own life here, but you got to get things done. This is bad. And yet everybody, oh man, you did so great. At one point, I actually thought that Dick Grayson was going to run for mayor in Bloodhaven. I thought that was going to be the play. That
I wondered that too.
Now, like all that money, I thought he was going to do, something with that. And also one of my other things, how much money do you think he has left? This guy's throwing money everywhere, but still, Alfred's going to come back eventually and think that, I just wanted you to hold the money. You spent all this. Oh my God. And then Dick Grayson's going to go, but I made a statue of you. You're in the park. And then Alfred's going to say, you made a statue I'm in my butler outfit. Why am I in a butler outfit? That's supposed to commemorate me as a person, you jerk. It makes me laugh every time I see that. But yeah, again, though, at the end, it is a book that you can recommend to people because it is so positive, and it does show you, oh my God, Dick Grayson's great, but I'm at a point where I need more because of the pacing and because of those baby steps, like you said.
We got a question from Robert. He said, can you think of a character recently that has had zero development but given such importance despite any backlash he's been getting? And why is it Paul from Amazing Spider-Man?
Paul. I did the review for this week's issue, and I said, it's fun. As a joke, I said, what needs to happen, the development with Paul, car accident. He needs to die. He needs to get in a plane wreck, something like that. Just get him out, because all of a sudden they tried to develop him in this last issue. Oh my God, he's that. And I'm like, I really don't care. Paul, get the hell out of here. But yeah, that Paul. There's a lot of characters like that, though, that end up, I'm thinking the idea, and I'd hate to say didn't get a lot of development, but Jace Fox is going to be another one that people would bring up. And I thought, again, calling him Batman, nonsense. You should have just had him be the new Batwing, take the place of Luke, his brother, and I think that he would have had a better chance. And then eventually, in the future state, you can say, well, when Batman, went away and they thought he was dead, then he stepped up because nobody else would. But the idea that there was development, but then that kind of just got pushed aside, and then it just felt like that book became, hey, you don't like this book, well, I'm going to fight you about it. And I'm going to, but the problem is, and a lot of times in books like that, I was reading it. I was interested in seeing what could happen. So you're yelling at me, but I'm reading the book. The people who, you ended up having John Ridley kind of grandstanding against, they're not reading that book. And then the book ends up not doing anything. And again, it was a weird play to just, again, force it. Hey, everybody, new Batman. I'm like, you could have done this. You could have developed it more.
I think a lot of it for me was I tried to give the book a chance. I read through that Second Son. It was digital. Mm-hmm. And then I switched over to the other book. And I got to about issue 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. And there was one that was really good. And I was like, okay, we're doing this. It's going to be okay. Like, he's getting his own little villain. He's got it in his own town. Okay. And then it just went to crap.
Yep, it did.
And I don't know, it wasn't the art. It was 100% John Ridley on that. And I've read John Ridley that I absolutely have gushed about. And that was that new, what was it, GCPD Blue Wall?
Yeah. People, here's the thing. I'll admit, I didn't read it because I was so like, oh God, dude, you blew it. I'm going to have to read it because a lot of people have said, and I think that a lot of people did write that off because of the other things. I'll have to read it. If you say it's good, I will check it out. Because again, I was like, this is, like you said, here's the thing when you said it, Jace Fox, and I see people, they don't like Jace Fox, but when he actually went to New York City, he has his own, get him out of Gotham. He goes to New York City, and there was the serial killer, even there. And it's funny, if you think back, if you read it, the serial killer ran around with like a iron with spikes on it. I'm like, that's not going to iron out any clothes. What are you doing here? But it was interesting, right? It was his own thing.
Exactly.
And that's what you needed to do. You needed to do and give him his own thing. And some of the stuff with the family interactions was interesting. And I love his sister. I think she's great. So you end up with all this going down, but it just never, it devolved. You had that first arc, and I thought, now we're going. It might be too late, and then it devolved again and just ended up being grandstanding and stuff like that and trying to fight back at people who were against the book and not reading it anyway.
Yeah, and then there was weird conversations with the mayor? He was like, these woke.
That's what I'm saying. You didn't need to do that. You didn't need to fight against that. And I agree with the comment that just came up. That's the problem is, I think that Jace you could consider him an awful Batman, but I will tell you, he should have never have been Batman. He should have been his own guy. He should have been Batwing. It really would have made sense. And when you have him as Batman, Luke was nowhere to be found. I wanted more Luke, and even the whole stuff that they did with the whole Fox family is so wacky, and it's kind of like pushed aside.
They made, whereas Lucius had always been this very beloved kind of up and up character, they completely deconstructed that.
Yes. And you know what's weird? They did it after Alfred was killed, so you needed somebody to be there to be that. He could have stepped up and really, he doesn't have to agree with everything Batman did. He doesn't even have, but they blew it. They ended up making it almost like, well, with Alfred gone, we don't want people like, Lucius, and made Lucius awful. I mean, awful. And I don't get, even in that book, I mean, you came and you had the idea, oh, you mean Jace was this, was not even as much. He ended up where Lucius ended up being a little handsy, and that all that stuff of how Jace came about. And his
Yes,
real
it was
mother,
so uncomfortable
it
for
was
a
bad.
Lucius character.
I know it was like and they tried to make it not uncomfortable, but it made it more uncomfortable. I'm like, no, Lucius was the boss, and he ended up. Oh my God, what are you doing? People still will claim that Lucius stole Bruce's money. Like, they won't even say, like, well, it was handed to him, Catwoman did this, and they did that whole play. They'll just say he straight up stole it. But even then, I don't even know what that money even means anymore. I mean, when they do that, they want to play that game. Bruce doesn't have money, but he always has money. He's always getting it.
Right.
It doesn't affect him. If you really wanted to show it affect him, it would be cool. But again, to go back to just development and stories in general, they like to throw things out there, but then it get like Lucius. What's going on with Lucius now? Or what's going on with Bruce's money? How much money does Nightwing have left? They kind of just use it as this big wow moment, and then they push it aside.
And I think when it came to a lot of the outrage with him being called Batman is Black Phoenix mentioned earlier. We have Batman Inc. We had Terry McGinnis. We had Nightwing. We had Asbat. But these characters just weren't handed it or kind of appropriated it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they felt like they earned it. Jace was just, and he almost was, what's the way to put it? He almost like didn't like it felt like he didn't like Batman.
Yeah. That's what's weird. It would be like me just running out in the street right now and yelling, I'm Batman. It really felt weird. And like you said, what John Ridley seemed to want to do is kind of go against like, oh, I'm going to, dig into some things and what Batman's about that doesn't fit, certain people or whatnot. But why would he want to be Batman then? Why wasn't he something else? Why didn't he end up making something that might have been cool where he's trying to do the right thing? But he's done some bad stuff. I mean, Jace is not the perfect, and maybe go and rub against Batman, and Batman, but you never had that. You just kind of pushed him aside in his own little pocket and never really dealt with it. But yeah, he felt like he didn't want to be Batman, but then he was Batman, and it was to me, it was just because you put Batman on the cover, they thought it would sell.
Exactly.
And, there was no other reason for it, and it didn't feel right away. And then people
and it didn't sell.
Backlash. Yeah. That's basically it. And with a deal where people are like, well, there's already a lot of Batman books. I don't know that I need this new Batman as well. But again, when you had New Superman with Con Keenan, that was a pretty good book. A lot of people went against that back in the day, but I liked it. And then you see the character is kind of continuing on. You have him in action and stuff like that, so that's cool. They should have Jace on Batman Inc. right now. It'd be kind of cool to have him. And maybe they could make fun of him. Like somebody should make fun of him for just calling himself Batman when he's in Gotham. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe you can even give him a new name now, and maybe he could be developed there.
I think Batman Inc. works because Grant Morrison took the time to set it up. And I also I will say one character that we haven't mentioned that I absolutely adore that Tinian set up is Ghostmaker.
And he's been developed. I mean, you ended up having a bunch of things. We know his origin. We know that the idea of why he's not like Batman, why Batman still ends up considering him has to be one of his better friends, even though he's against him sometimes, and now giving him that shot to run Batman Inc. I think is great. And again, at the beginning, I didn't like the character. And it's one of those things I think everybody has to, get used to a character in their own way. And I love him now. I really, really like him, and I like the only thing I worry about it is in Batman Inc., which I think is going to come to a head, the idea that he is it feels like they're trying to make him more like Batman when I want him to just be and I think he's going to be himself. And here's my little deal. My theory is that Wingman in the book is Bruce Wayne. That he is on the team right now, that Batman Bruce Wayne is actually Wingman, and he's watching what Ghostmaker is doing. And that's my theory, because at one point back in the day, it was Jason Todd or his dad. There's always the little twist and just recently, I think it was the last issue, he kind of got called on it. Hey, you never take your mask off. Why are you this way? And he's like, don't worry about it. And even the one guy, like, I don't think you're who you were before, and I do think that it's Bruce who's there.
Oh, I
Will
think you're
show.
onto something.
Yeah, that was. I almost made a video on it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm lazy. I don't need to do that. But yeah, that's my theory. So we'll see if it works out. But I think it could be pretty cool. And right now, like anybody watching, listening, Batman Incorporated is a really good book, and it's not getting the sales that it deserves. It's actually really, really good, and you have these different characters, and it is the development of Ghostmaker as well. And it's not just, the idea, I'm a good guy now. He does have, sometimes he's kind of a dick. He doesn't have any empathy, but he's starting to show a little, especially with Clown Hunter, showing a little more of that. So I think that people should check that out, even if it's in the app. I think it's a really good book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really like. There's a couple times, especially in the beginning, I wish they would have had like a head count.
Yep.
Like, because I was confused with some of the characters. So
That's my whole thing. I argued so much on our podcast because you were overwhelmed with the characters.
Yes.
And a lot of people, and the guy Eric, who I do the DC Comics podcast with, we joke that he's read comics all his life, right? So he knows these characters. Yeah. He's read a lot of things. But I said, you're the anomaly. There are people like me who I kind of know them, but you're also introducing new characters, and even legacy stuff. And you have, then remember, you had the characters on the team. Then they went to go get the mentors of Ghostmaker, which made double the characters. Then you had other people trying to get, I'm like, there's like 58 characters in this book. It's like BTS in this book here. I'm like, yes. I can't keep track of them. And I wanted a head count. I'm with you. And you're getting more character work now in the second arc, especially, and up till now, which you have to get through those first bits. It's a little rough with the characters and knowing who's who and what. But it is paid off, though, I have to say. I really do like it.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe in the trade they'll do that, but like it would have been smart for people, just even, seasoned readers. It would have been able to keep things like I could have taken a picture and then looked like, okay, I know who you are now. I got this. But yeah, and Clown Hunter is another one that has had development too. And he was one in the beginning that started off, with this mission to go after Joker. And now we're seeing him completely change, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so funny with Phantom One, the protege of Ghostmaker, now in that Stormwatch book in the Batman, Batman Brave and the Bold deal. Yeah. That I hope that character is like, I don't know. I thought at that point, like, okay, you're pushing it too much. But I'm more interested because of how well you have these other characters developed. And I seriously never thought ever that we were going to get any sort of development out of Clown Hunter. I really didn't think we'd ever see that. And we're getting that. So that is pretty cool. And now that these Jokers from around the world are attacking, I'm sure he's going to have a ball. I thought of the idea like, okay, what does a Clown Hunter do when there's no clowns around? Like those points, does he just kind of sit around? Well, now you have a bunch of
Joker
other
Inc.
opportunities. Yeah, Joker Inc. is now there. And even such a weird play. What Ed Brisson is doing is even developing some characters more from that new Superman book, that Beiji, the Batman of China, who's on the team. Alpaca, the Joker, is his sister. They just, reminded people of that. That's a really good story, too. And it's interesting. That's a book that's really doing a lot of things and really does need to be, something bigger. And I see MP in the chat saying that he expects the book to be canceled in September. I've already said that as well. September, October. It's a shame, but I think that might not last as long as it should.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering the same thing. Tavia wants to know your opinion on the character development of the West family, which I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And the problem is, though, and just as an aside, I talked to Jeremy Adams a little, just send him messages on Twitter, and he's a great guy. He responds to everybody. He's very positive about things. He is a little frustrated with how things went with The Flash. And it must be hard. You're sitting there and you're writing a book that everybody's telling you is great, but the sales aren't there. And it was weird. And then the sales finally got there when it was already announced he was off the book. And I asked him, because the idea that Cy Spurrier is taking over the book in September, is it going to deal with the family? Is it going to deal with Jay and Irene and things? And he said he has no idea, but he doesn't think so. And he's kind of worried.
That's a shame.
And the weird play is everybody, you love that book because of the family, right? I mean, everybody does who reads it. If you eventually get to read that book, you're going to love it. It's so much fun. And unlike the Nightwing book, there is development and there is story progression and there is some stuff going on, even if it's just family stuff. And again, just I always go off on tangents, but the idea when you said about couples talking like real talk, you have this family it feels real. It actually feels like a real family. It's not just lip service stuff. It's actually stuff if you have a family, if you have kids, whatnot. But when I asked him, he said he is really worried. And I said, maybe they'll allow you to like come back and have like a separate Flash Fastest Man Alive, a Wally book with his family, or Flash Family Adventures. And he's like, you know what? I might ask them if I can do that. And I'm like, please go and ask them now, because coming up, that issue 800 from the Flash has a preview of Cy Spurrier's story that's going to come in September, and woo-wee, it's wacky. I don't know how people are going to react to it, but I'm not really down with, the wackiness. I'd rather have the family, and it's a shame because that book is great. But the characters develop really good, and having Animal Man's daughter Maxine involved was like perfect. I love her, all that stuff. And I even mentioned earlier, like some of the characters, and they said, stuff like a Firestorm, we don't see much, or Captain Atom, we don't see Animal Man a lot, and there he was. Yeah. He was in there. The funny thing is that book's so good. And I see, oh, my Animal Man. I love Animal Man. There's Maxine. I love her. One guy would not stop yelling at me because they ended up having a vegetarian burger option at the barbecue because Animal Man was there. And this guy could not get over that. He was screaming and yelling. And he's like, why would they do that? That's just pushing everybody to be vegetarian. I said, I don't think that's the case, dude. It's Animal Man. He ain't gonna eat animals. He's a vegetarian. That's set up. And he's like, no, they're just trying to get the global meat market down. I'm like, you really think these comics are a lot more powerful than I think?
Oh my!
Oh my goodness! I just tried to talk to this guy. He had enough. He was calling me names and stuff. I'm like, oh well, whatever. But yeah, again, I like that book. Really, Jeremy Adams is throwing a lot of characters in as well. I mean, the last issue he had was bonkers with the amount.
But they feel like they belong.
Yeah. And again, Wally West, if you end up saying, and I do agree, Dick Grayson, Nightwing is the heart of the DCU. I think that maybe you could say Wally's the soul of it, and him coming back at Rebirth was such a great thing. And then they blew that. But Jeremy Adams rectified all of that. He made the Heroes in Crisis. He, retconned that to really.
Oh, that issue was so good.
It was so good. And that's when, at the beginning, I was kind of like, okay, I like these stories, but I don't know. And when that hit, I was like, this is great. This is really good. And since then, it's been my favorite book. Even when I review it, and Tevye, he yells at me as well about even the last issue. I said, there's some things that seemed a little like a little rushed, but because his run's ending, and he was giving me the business. He was, but it's my favorite book, and he's my favorite writer right now in a group of writers that came over that almost all of them stink, and he was that deal of the. And
he's so passionate.
Yeah, and he gets the characters. He knows how to write them, and it just really, like you said, really passionate. Especially and I like the first issue of the Green Lantern he did, but I think that he really likes to write about families with kids because of his family. And if you follow him on Twitter, I mean, he seems great. I mean, he's out there with his kids and they're at concerts singing stuff. It's so fun. And I hope that he can get that passion in something like that, Hal Jordan Green Lantern. I hope that it does end up, going over to that as well.
I had him on and he was talking about my favorite issue of this so far, his run, was that daddy-daughter dance.
Yeah.
It was adorable and sweet. And he said he sat his daughter down. He had her make all these monsters. He was having her, kind of help him out with the book. And when the paycheck come, they split it. And she was able to go get the man is very talented, very passionate. And I get his book's so wholesome. Even characters like Gold Beetle, I've grown to love.
And I didn't like Gold Beetle at first, and now I have loved it as well. And Omega Bam Man is just kind of funny, the whole deal with the wrestling and stuff. is cool,
Yes.
too. But it's, like you said, it's wholesome. And that's why when people talk about the idea of the Super Sons, he did the movie, so I'd love him to write a new
Yes.
Super Sons book as well. I think that he would do awesome on that. I know that people want Tomasi to write whatever Super Sons there are, but if Tomasi's busy or doesn't want to do it, I think that Jeremy Adams would be great with that. Or just I don't know about everybody else, and this is a book that'll never happen, but I would read a book with Jay, Irie, and Maxine right now. If they
Yes,
ended up
that would be
having,
great.
I'm telling you, if they had Super Sons and Daughters or something like that, call it like a little play on that, I'd be right there. I would love it. And I'm telling you, add in Nightbuster, add her in the team, and we'll get like this little, almost like a Teen Titans type deal there going on. Then also, people forget about Live Shot, the daughter of Deadshot, that ends up having her dog that was, what was it, Dog Shot. Another Tom Taylor deal. Get her on it. I love it. That would be so wholesome and fun. And that's the whole deal is I'm an older guy, but I really, really love those wholesome family books. Those are the ones.
Familial
that I
books are so great.
Oh, I love them so much. And hopefully that's what we're getting, and we'll eventually get more of from a Green Arrow. I know some people have actually been complaining recently, oh, why are we getting all these family books now? Why is it all I'm all for it. I don't mind it at all. I really like that. But yeah, and you have your darker books as well that you'll always have, but I really do enjoy these.
I said I think somebody at DC is in the family moment, because we are getting, I love the family stuff, don't get me wrong, I love the wholesome, but somebody's definitely baby crazy over there.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's funny too, because the idea where you want to have more family books in a company that seems to be set against anybody getting married, and so you have to play it. It's weird. And that's the deal. Drew likes that Eclipso story. I like that. I think I'd like you said, some of those like one-shot deals, the daddy-daughter deal.
Yes.
I love that annual that ended up retconning the Heroes in Crisis and anything that had to do with the kids. And there were even parts where I really liked the way he played it too, because you almost had, you had two parts of a story going. You had Wally doing his thing, but then you had the kids doing their thing. And it was such a good mix between those that you could have almost had a back up story, but of the kids and
with
stuff
the kids. Yes.
Yeah, and I love those kids. They're so cool, and again, they're not new characters, so there you go. You have Jeremy Adams coming. He's not going to get a lot of residuals or anything but he put so much care into bringing them back and doing what everybody originally, when they brought him back, when they brought Wally back in Rebirth, that's what they wanted. Like, he was giving everybody, it felt like a Rebirth book.
Yes.
When most people are saying, man, I miss Rebirth. Why did they screw up Rebirth? And I kept telling people, you got to read this book. If you are somebody who was in at Rebirth and upset now, it's like that callback. And even like you said, they're baby crazy, but I don't mind that. And also you get a little feel that Mark Waid's World's Finest book, how fun it is, and just to go
Yes.
out, and that's kind of maybe, hey, be a little like that. And I'm all for that too, overall. And I think that right now, with a lot of people who want to yell and scream about how DC did this or whatever, there's some pretty good books right now. And there's been times where there's been real droughts. But the thing is, I don't know if you'd agree, there's some really good books and there's some really, really bad ones. And I think that people are centering a lot on the bad.
On the bad.
Yeah, instead of some of these really good ones. Because some of these Dawn of DC, while they might end up not being the greatest overall down the line, right now they're pretty good. They're pretty good books. So I think that people should check those out at least.
Thank you so much, Drew. I love the Eclipso stuff. Was it the Eclipso where you took the book and you turned it, or was that?
Yeah, that was part of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
You know what? Here's the thing, though. I read digitally. 100%. I've always read digitally, and I'm there, and I didn't change like the screen shifting, so I'm there, and I turn, I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch! I was so mad. I actually sent a message to Jeremy. I was like, you almost had me throwing my tablet out. Then I realized, wait a second, I can turn that off. Why am I such a dummy? And I turned it off then. But a lot of people love that. A lot of people, and
it was so creative.
Yeah, it was, and that's why I think that this run of Jeremy Adams is so good. Because again, not that you had the everything doesn't have to be a crisis. everything doesn't have to be the end of the world. You can have stories that, and that's, I'm telling you, like, I don't know if you like manga, if you read any manga, but manga is really big on character development first and then story. And that's why I kind of went into that whole video. If you can set up character work like a daddy-daughter, you fall in love with, Irie and Wally and everybody. You'll go through the peaks and valleys with a character that has been set up that you love. You'll follow them through anything. You just can't okay, I'm going to get right to this crisis story without developing things, because then people bail. They're like, I don't care about Naomi, or I don't care about this.
Yes.
But if you have that, that foundation of a character, you will, unfortunately, there's going to be, dips in story quality, whatnot. Maybe you're not in, but you'll still read it and like it because of the idea that you love the character first, and then you'll follow them in anything. And that's what I think is missing with some of these. But Jeremy Adams has it full out. And I like the way that he did the first issue of Green Lantern. Again, a lot of people said it's not a lot going on. It's a lot but that's what you need. You need to get people, because there hasn't been a good Hal book in quite some time, or a Hal book for the masses. People like that Grant Morrison, The Green Lantern, that was wacky. That book was so wacky, but I like
weird.
Grant Morrison now a little more than I did in the past. It was weird. That's not going to get everybody on board, but Jeremy Adams, I think, is the perfect guy to get everybody back on with Hal and the Green Lantern stuff. So I hope that continues with this character work, because he does the background work to go. Sometimes writers don't seem to do that as much, and you get, like, I don't know what you think of it, but the Power Girl stories by Leah Williams, where you don't even recognize the character half the time,
not even a little bit
going on, and so you wonder what the play is there, and it's a little wacky.
Art's gorgeous, but
yeah. Oh, that art is great. But yeah,
beautiful.
People reading it who are like, "Oh my God, thank God, Power Girl," and they're like, "Who's this? You're calling her Paige?" And she's got telepathic. That's gone now, but in a weird way. But still, yeah, she has weird things going on there. That it seems like, is this somebody trying to develop more of or is it somebody who just doesn't know what's going on? It's funny. I say that when Bendis first came over, he made a couple mistakes in the Superman books, right? He ended up, it seemed like he didn't know this or that. But then he played it off of, no, I know that. I'm developing something different. I'm like, no, I think that you didn't know it.
Yeah.
And the idea, Bendis came over and said, listen, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm not going to change anything about Superman or the Superman. And then immediately changed everything. He's such a liar.
It is Bendis. Also, Drew, congratulations. He says, by the way, Power Hour 2 is at 123K. Holy crap.
Awesome.
That is amazing.
Yep.
Ends tomorrow. Yes. Don't miss out, guys.
Yeah, go and check it out. Drew's a really good guy, so check that out. Awesome guy. He has a little sus opinions sometimes on comics, but that's fine.
I always say he hates everything.
I end up where the funny thing that Drew ends up, he likes things that I'm like, that's what you like? What's going on, Drew? But he's a good guy. I really like Drew.
Robert, thank you so much. I will say this. Junkyard Joe is a perfect example of setting up characters, executing them, giving them great development, all within 6 issues. Jeff Johns is a master. Also, the stuff with Beth and Yolanda and JSA interests me, acknowledging they were dead before.
Yeah, that was a crazy part in that last JSA. And just to go, I don't think we got full development of the Lost Children and the Stargirl and the Lost Children.
Yeah.
But that even, I love those kids. Those are, like, get all those too. They're going to be in the JSA book, but boy, I love every one of them. And that also shows, like you said before about like a Riley Rossimo on the Harley book. The art does a lot of the heavy lifting with those.
Oh, that art
well.
is so
good.
spectacular.
Is so good. And I'm telling you, I ended up reading that Lost Children. The character that I want more of and I love is Salem, the witch girl. I thought that, I'm like, there's a character. And then you get to the JSA, the last one, and you get the premonition, oh, she's going to be evil. I'm like, you sons of bitches. That was the one character. I'm like, that is my character. And it looks like she might be sus, but we'll see. I think that there might be plays with it. But boy, I want to see more of those. And I know that people have their reasons for not liking Jeff Johns or liking him, but when he writes a comic, I usually enjoy it. So I end up really, liking a lot of the stuff that he does. He has his own ways that will drive me nuts sometimes, and his delays are awful.
Awful.
And he needs to. At one point, I swear, he announced, listen, I understand that I have delays, so what DC has told me is I have to finish a series before they even release one issue. I don't know what happened with that because the JSA
That's
has
actually
been delayed
smart.
so much.
That's really smart. Do that. Do that,
Yeah.
Juicy.
Yeah,
Yes.
and get them to do it, or at least half of, 6 issues. Get them somewhere ahead, like really ahead. And he said that's what's going to happen. And then that JSA, that got delayed. And I asked Michael Janine, like, what's the deal? Because I don't think him, I've never seen him delay anything. Any book that
Right.
he's been on really never got delayed. So I said, what's going on? You don't usually delay things. And he was trying not to throw anybody under the bus, but he was kind of like, yeah, things happen when you're on books with certain I'm like, okay, you're saying that Jeff
we
Johns
get it.
changed a bunch of things. And luckily, it seemed like that was the case. Like, because he's always thinking he's going to do this, we're going to do that. But that really does put a lot on the artists as well if they have already, say, finished something. And then you come back, oh, by the way, I need to change these 5 pages. But he's a pretty good guy to do that with. I think that he's pretty quick with his art.
What do you think about, so when they announced those, I think it's the We Are Legends line, I was peeved. Like, I was annoyed. I'm like, we have so many good characters. Why are you not utilizing them? Have you had a chance to check out any of those yet?
Yes, and I like them.
I know, me too.
This is the thing. I've reviewed the first issues of all 3 of them, and I swear to God, I have to always start the review by saying to really stress the idea, I didn't want any of these. I made fun of them. I thought that this was just the idea City Boy. I'm like, really? And then that might be my least favorite of them actually right now. But what I really like about these We Are Legends Plus, they reminded me of the new age of DC heroes, the stuff that they had with like Damage and
and that they
Silencer
abandoned.
and Sideways. And so I thought, okay, here we go again. And I actually made the point of saying, there are things that you hear that you never understand how they got past any sort of board meeting or anything because of the idea they sound so nothing, like this is going to bomb. And yet I read that Spirit World and I'm like, crap, I don't even love Alyssa Wong, but this is pretty good. Then I read The Vigil and I'm in the minority, it seems. I'm not a big Ram V fan. I love it.
I am.
Ram B, that Vigil, that's my favorite one.
Yes.
I thought, boy, this is awesome. And then City Boy, I'm like, all right, I even said before it came out, the week before it came out, listen, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I think this, and then I like City Boy as well. I'm like, it almost was like upsetting to me that I liked these books that I thought were going to bomb so much because I was so set on, I won't have to deal with those. I'm like, here's 3 more books because they were really good and they're new characters. And it shows you, though, having them in their own thing that gives them. Now, Spirit World does have Constantine and Cass. And Cassandra was the reason why I was really wanting to read Spirit World before it came out. But I'd like Xanthi as well. And it gives them. And I'll give Alyssa Wong credit. In that preview deal, when we got those little things from the Lazarus Planet tie-in, I thought that she was doing a thing where Constantine was looking like a chump to elevate the but that wasn't the case in the first issue. The first issue was really well done. And Constantine, you even get a little development, the idea, because people forget, he still wants to help people. He just does wacky things and he's a little sus, but you even get that from it. And I really like them. It's so funny. Now, maybe we'll get that with Night Terrors with a K coming up, but I don't know. That has me worried for DC shutting down things for 2 months for Night Terrors, but we'll see. Maybe it'll work out.
I was actually like very shocked because I like Ram V, all except Detective Comics. Like, it's okay.
No,
okay.
I see.
No.
Did you read his Layla Starr book, that the indie
Yes.
book? That was incredible.
Incredible.
And I think that for me, I think that Ram V is definitely better with his own characters, that he can develop them his way and things like that. I think that that's his play. Or certain books, Swamp Thing, people did love, and his writing
loved it.
Yeah, his writing goes well with something like that. I think that, and I'm kind of upset because Dennis Culver, the Doom Patrol book that I'm not really into it as much. I think that Ram V would write a great Doom Patrol book. I think he'd be fantastic on that. And like certain things like that, I think he'd be great on an Animal Man book if they brought that back. I think that he has that tone for stuff like that. But that Vigil, That's pretty damn good. I was excited about it. I was all fired up about all these new characters and stuff like that. And he did something I was worried. We talked about Batman Inc. earlier. I was worried that he might play that route. We're going to get 50 million characters. Oh, no. He didn't.
Yeah.
He developed them as they're going, and I'm into it.
And he even saved the one, which I was like, dang it, now I want to know.
I know.
And I really like the designs, the way that he described them. I thought they were really good. I think City Boy reminded me a lot of Jack Hawksmoor.
Mm-hmm. It does. It's a shame because it really does feel like that. You got to develop them past that.
And I'm like, I'm going to give it a chance. It reminded me of also The Mask. All I can think of is Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does seem like that. And again, like I said, that's my least favorite of them, but I still did like it. And I'm reading through it, and I'm like, okay, well, there you have Inner Gang. I see that. Okay, Bruno, man. Oh, shit, Dark Side at the end. You're like, okay, well, that ups the ante a bit. I think people will be excited about that. So they feel like, it's funny because they shouldn't feel like they mean anything, really. That's how I felt going in, like, but they do feel like they mean something. And I hope that they end up, maybe going into the proper deal and being around because they are kind of like this own thing right now, which is good to set it up. So I hope that we see more of them.
I hope that they weave eventually into the other titles.
Yep.
Now I've been collecting Detective Comics, but I don't think there's been anything that Ron V has created that I haven't adored. So I was really excited for him to get on Detective Comics until about 2 or 3 issues in, and then I was like, I am so bored.
Yeah, it's tough. To me, it's too drawn out. The funniest thing with me, I'm reading it, and there's the one conversation very early between Two-Face and Bruce Wayne. Batman comes in, and I'm like,
yes,
who are these dudes? Like, they are talking like it's Shakespeare, and they're like, oh my. But he ended up explaining it that this is more of this operatic type deal. I'm like, okay, I get it, but you're throwing a lot, and like we say, being overwhelmed. There's a lot of pieces in place, but they're not really connecting yet. And I think that eventually they will, and then I'll be more on board with it. But right now, I have been a bit bored. I have been through, and it doesn't help. I'm not a big Cy Spurrier fan. I mentioned him earlier, but the backups that he had were like mind freaks as well. And I'm like, I don't know. I need something to kind of grab on. But a lot of people do like it. I'm not saying that it's bad. And I always say the idea, Ram V, I think, is a really, really good writer. He just doesn't click sometimes with me. And it's more of I have really bad attention deficit disorder. I can't focus. That's not the type of writing for somebody like that. Like I'm reading narration panel after narration panel of flowery, verbiage. And now I realize I'm thinking about my laundry that I have to do, and I've got to go to the, to get food.
I totally get
it. Yeah, I drift from it. But then when I do get it just takes me a while. And I will say, I used to laugh at the idea when people would say to me, oh, it'll be better in the trade. I always took that as they're just making excuses because it sucks. That was just me. This will be better in the trade when you have everything. Now, it might be a hard read because I would fall asleep, but I think that all these pieces might work better, if you marathoned it or something like that, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that book. But when I end up reviewing it and saying I don't like an issue, there are a lot of people that do end up disagreeing with me, which is cool because they do like it. And a lot of people are using that as their alternative to Chip Zdarsky's Batman, where you kind of get the Bat God stuff going. And a lot of people don't like that.
The serious Bat God who can fall from space. I'm still not over that. That is wild. And I like what Chip's been doing on Batman. I like the alternate Earth. I loved issue 900 where we got to see all the different Batman, right, from the different universes. That was great. But I get it. I'm not a Bat God fan. So I totally understand that. But when it comes to Ram V, I really love his writing. Sometimes it comes off mildly pretentious.
It does. That's a word I use a lot with it, but he's a smart guy. He really is.
He is.
He writes smart things, and I'm the first to admit. And I don't know, when people talk to you about comics, one of the things that I do hate, and it comes up with like a Grant Morrison, like, oh, I don't like that, and then they immediately just say I'm dumb. Right? Oh, you're just stupid. You don't get it. I'll admit it. I'm a guy who doesn't really want to sit down and read comics to get intellectually stimulated. I want to have fun. That's why the wholesome stuff of Jeremy Adams I love. But I get some people some people do like it to be a little more mature and adult. That's just not me, right? And so when I read it, that's why I say I understand that he's a great writer. It just doesn't click with me. But sometimes pretentious is a good word because it does come off like that sometimes. It really does.
He actually created a character in his Swamp Thing, which is another one that didn't get development. It was Trinity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trinity should have been introduced way before in that series to develop her more because that was interesting. And I always love when you get a Swamp Thing. I love when writers do try to expand the mythos and try to expand things. He ended up, Charles Soule did it in the New 52. It wasn't as fancy as Ram V, and I think Ram V would have done it a lot better with Trinity to develop more. But you had like the Machine Queen and things like that, which is always interesting to me. And I really thought that's what we were going to get with Trinity, but it was too late, right? It ended up being
It was way too late in the series.
Yeah. And that seemed like a cool character.
But he did do like when it came to that area where that book came out, there was Jace Fox, there was John Kent, there was Jackson Hyde, but then you had Levi Kamai, and everybody kind of lumped them in together. Oh, they're replacements. Oh, they're this.
Yeah.
He actually made me like Levi.
Yeah.
To a degree that I never thought I would. Like, it was such good character development. So I know if he got his hands on Trinity, he could. It's just being able to do that, like, with editorial and ending a book, or because everything's miniseries nowadays, right? Like you get 6.
Yeah. And
if
then
you're
if
lucky,
it's good,
12.
they expand it, and then like a Poison Ivy, they keep expanding it and doing things with that. But yeah, it is all miniseries, so you have to develop these characters when you have the chance. It was funny with Ram V because it was supposed to be 10, and then they expanded it to 16. I swear to God, when Trinity came out, and he just wants them to expand it to 24 now. He is playing a game where but they didn't do that, unfortunately. It's weird too because, like you said, Levi, they did lump him in with a lot of people and just kind of, pushed him aside, even going back to Khalid a little earlier for Dr. Fate.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Fate.
And so you were having it's weird, a lot of the dark characters, too, being changed up. But that's not anything that hasn't happened. These things can happen. And the idea of, an avatar of the green, things like that, that's a bit more natural to have happen than some of the others. It's what happens. You have these plays. But again, I love the idea that people are like, no way, Alec Holland for me forever. I'm like,
read it.
Who's really dealing with Alec Holland? You know what I mean? Like, you're really going to do that? You could go, I like Levi. And the weird play, though, is as you go forward, you'll have Swamp Thing in books. And I always sit there, I'm like, is that Levi or is that?
Yes.
Hey, and you can't, because unfortunately a lot of times Swamp Thing himself looks the same. So you're like, is it? And then they'll mention, I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's Levi. I'm down with that. There's no problem with that. I like it.
I really enjoyed that. And that was one of those that stand out. And I wish that they would do more with, even though he did get character development. Like, there's so many that we mentioned that didn't get good character development. But then when they actually do the work and they put it in, you're like, okay, well, I need more. Come on now.
Yeah. We do always want more. I end up where, again, people were arguing with me about the character development. I wasn't saying that all of the characters were never developed. I mean, like, the idea that they're there on the page and you're like, we know what they are and how they are. But when you do end up continuing, you do have to evolve the characters a bit more past even that origin or past, the one thing that they're known for or whatnot. And that's where I think a lot of times, and you said it, I think a lot of thing is the idea of how books come out now. You can't really do that in miniseries either. You have to rely on it'll get picked up for something else. Somebody else will write it. So it is tough, but that really means you have to really nail it down when you first start. You really have to get things going. Maybe, maybe we'll get lucky and at some point, I don't think anybody will deal with that Trinity except for Ram V, but maybe he'll be able to work it into something, even maybe a Vigil. I don't know. You might be able to do something crazy, and that would be pretty cool, but we'll have to see.
What do you think of and I know I usually talk DC because that's That's
what
my
I use.
brand.
Yeah, that's the same here. I end up talking and doing some Marvel stuff, but DC is, number one for me as well.
Like, I picked up Avengers 1. It was really good. And I know people are talking about this Amazing Spider-Man. Have you had a chance to read that yet?
Yeah, it's tough. And again, that was just in Amazing Spider-Man. Zeb Wells was setting up this, mystery box story from day one, from issue one. And then I think that the real problem, a lot of people are upset, and I don't know, spoilers, a certain character dies. And they're upset about that. But I don't know if it's just that for me. It's the idea of waiting 26 issues for a resolution. The resolution didn't feel earned. It felt forced. It felt out of nowhere at points. And that is what I've... This Amazing Spider-Man run of Zeb Wells has just not been good. It started out decent. You had, some Tombstone stories that were pretty cool. And we'll get back to that, it seems, later. But I think that they kind of poisoned the well here a bit with Zeb Wells, and I think he needs to go. But Jed MacKay on that Avengers, I thought was a solid first issue. I wanted it. I think that's what you needed. A lot of people ditched. It almost feels like what I said earlier about Jeremy Adams on the Green Lantern at DC.
Going back to basics.
Yeah, you have to go back to the basics because you end up, and some people say, well, back to the basics would be Steve Rogers, Captain America. Well, that's fine. Everybody's going to have their opinion on the stuff. But the idea of Jason Aaron, that Avengers run was so all over the place. I said it wasn't an Avengers book. It was almost like a Jason Aaron Presents books.
I didn't read it.
Yeah, he was just doing wacky stuff. Then it got multiversal. It got all wacky. And so when you come back in Jed MacKay, and people really love Jed MacKay. I like him. I like him. I think he is a solid writer, and I think that's what they needed for this Avengers. A solid writer who's going to give you that team, and then you're going to go forward. And I'll give him credit. Captain Marvel is now the leader of the Avengers, and normally I would see people losing their mind about that, and not that many people did. They kind of said that, but not as much as I thought, because it made sense a bit in the book, and he ended up making her even a bit likable in that. So I think that he's going to do pretty well on that. People love his Moon Knight. I don't like it as much as some, but it's a solid read. And I think that's the thing. You have to sit there, and I from when I started reading and doing the podcast and reviews and stuff like that, we've gotten to the point where we are at a point, well, it's not great, but it's better than that other crap. And I'm like, I need better than that, but I'll go with it.
That shouldn't be the bar.
I know, it seems like that's like everything in life now. It's like, well, at least it's not as bad as that. At least I see some people, even you like Ram V, but that Detective Comics, I've had people say, well, I don't love it, but it's better than Chip Zdarsky's Batman. Excuse me, I want both of them to be great.
Yes.
I'm not going to just say, okay, I'll do. But again, if you're going and buying things and it's a solid read, at least you're getting your money's worth, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm collecting detectives, so I can kind of wait for it all to make sense. Like, we just did this whole, like, Court of Owls. They were around. Everybody should have known, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, I'll deal with that later. But when it comes to that, like, I am not, like, I read 2 to 3 books of Marvel a month. Like, it's bare minimum. And I picked up that Avengers, and I was like, okay, as a new reader, this made sense.
Yes.
I could understand her motivations, Captain Marvel. I could understand why she picked this character. I even really liked the work between her and Tony.
I loved it. When Jed MacKay actually even says, like, listen, we were against each other in Civil War II, but, I need you here. I love that. I thought that was really, really well done. I'll ask you, because you said the idea that you read a couple Marvel books. I have a Marvel podcast, and I haven't really done much with it because I only really have a couple. And it's one thing to review every book and whatnot, but a lot of the books at Marvel, it's not like, and again, I review Harley every time it comes out on the DC Comics podcast. It's terrible, but I end up reviewing it, and I have some fun, poking fun at it and things like that. But the problem I have with the Marvel stuff right now, it's not that it's bad. A lot of it's boring. And and that's the thing I hate the most. I would rather have a crazy, book that might be bad, but at least there's something to kind of yell or talk about. Some of this stuff is the new Captain America stuff. I think is just boring. And some of these bigger books that should be all right. Every podcast when this comes out, you should talk about it. And I almost get to the point where I'm kind of bored even reading it, then bored talking about it. I don't want to have a podcast where people are like, man, that guy sounds bored. So I kind of ditched it. That's one of the reasons why I started doing video reviews. I'm like, I'll just review them on YouTube and then go that route because it's, in and out. But a lot of this stuff is more boring than bad. And I think that is a problem with Marvel right now. While DC has that thing we said, there's some really great books now and there's some real stinkers. And you kind of have to weed through that. But at least you have some excitement going on, at least for me. But me and you said we're both DC people. So I'd rather, do that and deal with that as well. So,
and it's funny because I got for years in the reviewer mode, right? Mm-hmm. I got to the point where I was reading stuff I didn't even like. I got to a point where I'm like, no,
no.
I read almost everything DC, and I say almost because there are books that even as a reviewer, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, no, no, not doing this.
Yeah. What's funny? It's when you're reviewing the things and you end up realizing, one of them is, say, the Tim Drake book. It's not good. But after 4 issues and you reviewed 4 issues, you end up like kind of saying the same things here. I'm not really, because the book isn't changing any. It's not getting any better. And I feel like I'm a broken record here. So that's when we'll do it all the time. One of our big things on the podcast was always we'll review everything. We dialed that back a little. At one point, our podcast was 12 hours long each week. That's insane. And
poor thing.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, we would legitimately start recording Saturday at 7 p.m. and wouldn't finish until the next morning. And we would just do it every week. We never missed a week. We did it. And at a point, we decided, well, let's dial it back a little. And so we don't do a lot of the Black Label stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of that's good. But we decided we'll just do continuity stuff. But I'm with you. When you end up, you got to like it. You got to have some sort of reason that you're still reading and reviewing it. And sometimes these books just don't give you that reason. And it's a shame because I think that you would agree, too. You don't want to not review it sometimes because then it's just left with the people who seem to lie and say it's great. And you want to at least tell people, listen, be wary of this. It's not the greatest. It's not these 10 out of 10s that people are giving. But eventually you kind of, you bail. You're like, I can't take it anymore.
You have to for your own sanity sometimes. I'm avoiding Harley because I know how it's going to be. I avoided Tim after 3 issues because I knew how it was going to be. I got to ask you, though, because I'm sick of, the end of Gotham, the end of Gotham. But what are your thoughts on this Catwoman Batman stuff that's going to be announced?
Well, you want to hear another crazy theory here to start out with is, I swear to God, and I'm not going to put it past Teenie Howard, I swear to God that Valmont's spirit is in Duchess the cat, and that's going to be revealed somehow. That Duchess is actually
I would love that.
It's going to be so good. I swear to God, I'm like, why is this cat pushing the ramen through this? Oh, my God, I think it might be Valmont that he ended up. That's why he gave her the cat, because it's a spirit animal. I don't know. But the whole play of it is I sit there and I want to say, and I always say, you need to wait and see. But I'm worried because it's, again, Batman losing Gotham. He keeps losing Gotham. And I hope that this is the story that actually shows that a competent Batman can still end up losing Gotham because it's just somebody he loves and he doesn't know how to react to that. That's a good setup for that. The idea that he's not prepared. The guy who prepares for everything is he's not prepared for love. And he's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like he could go and say, oh, the Joker's taking, I'm going to. But I hope that you do see that. And I hope that it's more of a personal story than just a bombastic Catwoman there as a head of a crime organization telling this guy to go beat up that and blow up that. I hope that they get a little more personal and do it well, because a lot of the stuff with the Bat-Cat has gotten a little skewed a bit. And I would rather have, me more. And I again, the reason why I want Duchess to be Valmont is because I want Valmont back to kind of deal with all of that. I need to have that being dealt with. And I don't know, that prison stuff was very odd. And that seemed like it might have just been a placeholder and a reason to get to this big story. So I'm going to count on this big story being the thing that might impress me. But I hope that it's weird. Chip Zdarsky, people kind of, not loving his Batman as much. And then you have Catwoman. I hope that those two coming together can get something like it's better than the equal of their sums, or it's, better than the individual parts, and it can elevate both books. I really hope so. It's weird, though. It's funny because it's after the Night Terrors, and I really thought they were going to come back again with a, let's get back to basics deal, but they're doing this, and I hope that that's what it ends up being. Then I hope that people are into it, but we'll see.
I'm kind of, I agree, but I'm kind of the, Tom King killed that ship for me. So by the end, I would love to see them hate each other. Come on. Yeah. I get there and I get it would be hard to get to that point, but there's a point where I like Selena Kyle as a character so much. I want her to have her own agency, her own story, everything else. And a lot of times it gets muddled when they bring them together.
Yeah.
So at some point I'm like, maybe it's time to go back to basics and have her be more of a villain than what she was. Either way, I'll be happy. I'm just glad to see her getting a main storyline, because that's, besides her being Batman's love interest, it's usually not that way.
Yeah. So that would be cool. And I see MP was saying about the idea that it's not him losing Gotham, but the crime boss, the king that's losing Gotham, she's going to control Gotham. And she's going to cut down crime. And you could play with that idea. Is Batman good for Gotham? That is a cool kind of ideal
concept.
Yeah, you could get that concept going, but it still is him not being able to control anything and being, left behind a bit with that. And I did see that, I guess it was Robert asked about the Donny Cates run on Venom. I really like that. I was not, and I think a lot of people would say the same thing, that they would never have read a Venom book, and word of mouth kind of got around. I really did like the development of Eddie, but the thing is, it got way too big, and then we had the King in Black stuff at the end, and it kind of got way overblown, and then boom, and what do you do from there? And he said about the Al Ewing Venom deal, Ram V was writing it too.
Yeah.
They were going back and forth. I got bored with it. I ended up being kind of bored, realizing it's not my Venom's not my character. I was into it with Donny Cates. That was the run I was down with, but I haven't been reading it recently because I was just kind of bored with the idea and that wacky stuff with the God Garden and all that things going on. It just wasn't something that was clicking with me.
Yeah, and I like Donnie on a normal basis. I loved his crossover. I like a lot of the stuff that he does. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that sometimes you get too big for your britches.
Yeah.
Even Donny Cates.
Mm-hmm. And I really do like Donny Cates a lot. It's a shame everything that's going on with him right now, and I hope that he can kind of get back and doing a bunch of things. I'd love for him to start writing at DC. That was one of the guys that I said right away, boy, I don't know exactly what I'd want him to write. Maybe a Justice League. I don't know, but I really would like that. I think he's a really good writer. But like I said, it got too big. It really felt like, and that might be editorial saying, okay, we're going to make an event out of this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it just kind of got too overblown, where I just like that personal story, with Eddie and his son going through all the stuff was really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, guys, we are going to wrap up. I could talk about this all day, I swear. It's what I love. I can't help it. It's my passion. But what do you have going on at your channel that these guys can look forward to?
I end up putting up videos, reviews. I mainly review stuff. I have a couple of, these videos where there's, editorial type things, I guess you'd call it, but more reviewing stuff. So if you end up, and I'm going to review more and more on YouTube. And also, if you go to the YouTube channel, which is just Weird Science Comics, you can end up with links if you like podcasts. We have a weekly DC Comics podcast. We have 3 weekly Marvel podcasts and 9 weekly manga podcasts. We have a lot of podcasts going. 9 of them. We have reading clubs, and we're going through My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, Chainsaw Man, Spy Family, Jujutsu Kaisen, Death Note, and Dragon Ball.
Yes, that's my favorite manga.
So we have each day of the week. There are a reading club podcast as we go through a chapter at a time. And they're bite-sized deals because the chapters go quick. So you get like a 15-minute show, me and my buddy Luke. And then we also have a Manga Monday show where we review a first chapter of bigger things or newer things. But yeah, just check out, just look up. If you listen to podcasts, just look up Weird Science Comics and you'll see them all, and it'd be cool to listen. So yeah, that's about it, and the YouTube reviews.
I'm gonna have to check out your Death Note one. It will forever. I read 6 mangas, so I'm an expert.
Okay, yes, that's the same here. Death Note though is. There are things that are cut above other things, and that is one of them. That
absolutely, yes.
It's smartly written. Everything makes sense. Things that confuse you at one point, you realize then, holy crap, that meant that.
Yes.
It's so crazy how good that is. It really is.
It really is. Oh, Breezen, thank you so much. Jim, sir, are you a fan of Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah, I used to love Mystery Science Theater. And it's funny, when we first started the podcast, that's kind of what we'll do it like that. We'll just poke fun at things. Like, we don't want to be mean, but we want to poke fun at the things we like. So it's kind of set up that way. That's
awesome. All right, guys, make sure you check out Weird Science. Link is in the description, and all of his podcast links are on his channel. And we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jim.
See you. Thank you.